Sephiroth is a good guy. Now I know what you're thinking. No way, you're being a silly goose, Pez.
I could keep you on the straight and narrow and tell you when you're being a silly goose.
And I agree with you. Sephiroth being an out-and-out good guy is not something I think could or kind of even should happen, but I had to find a way to bait you to this video somehow. No, but seriously though I do think we could be dealing with a potential nothing is either good or bad, only thinking makes it so situation. That old Shakespeare quote, you know, the one that underpinned the tonality of the old Versus 13 days and had Final Fantasy fans just so gripped, interested in such a way, many could not shake it for years to come. And I think we are long past the point of black and white villains, like the old Final Fantasy days, you know, X-Death, gonna take over the world. Video games have got so much better at exploring the moral grey. Square certainly have the nuance of villains, and I've got a theory on that today for Sephiroth. So yes, this is going to be a full FF7 Remake spoiler video, ending everything, the whole shebang-a-lang, as well as what I'm going to discuss in this is kind of being a jumping off point from my God Cloud theory. So if you haven't seen this already, I definitely recommend you doing so. Not that I'm going to go on about the idea, like about the cloud being a vessel part, because since doing that video, more ideas have emerged in my brain as well as from the comments of awesome ass people like you. But we are going to touch on points of it. So if we're all up to date, let's do it. Let's jump straight on in.
Now, show me something truly exquisite.
The Silverhaired Swordsman is back, a villain so iconic to video game history. It is of course nearly impossible to not see him just as that. A villain, evil, the rival to Cloud, the counterpart, the dark to his light. It's been so ingrained in us over so long, everything even from the creepy ass cat eyes, the black wing. No, certainly portrayals of things like him in Kingdom Hearts or Advent Children, which they really framed his villainry so acutely that it is kind of overpowering the other Seph. You know, the other one that once existed before we went to Nibelheim, before he lost his mind, the man in Crisis Core, who was willing to put himself out on a limb for a friend, someone who did have compassion. He did have a modicum of mercy. You know, not to say he was the best and didn't have underlying psychological issues pre-existing, because he definitely did, but there was a man before the losses of his friends, before the betrayals of his upbringing, the Genova-induced identity crisis, and most importantly of all, I can't stress this, the repeated returns from death. To say there's been a lot of different versions of Sephiroth is an understatement. And in this latest FF7 Remake, that is really no exception, as in literally. Because it's easy to see his every butt-puckering appearance in this game, just label him and project a single characterization of him. But as this ending reveals, and the Final Fantasy 7 Remake Ultimania has covered, which has been translated quite extensively by user Itakimochi, I don't think I'm saying that, or Audrey on Twitter, who I'd really like to thank for all their translation work. They've done such a consistent job in keeping us up to date. The old man actually says quite extensively there are multiple Sephiroths appearing in the game. And here are the four they list. So 1, an illusion only Cloud can see. 2, a black-robed Sephiroth, so this would be like the failed clones. Then we've got number 3, a flashback. And then 4, we've got a unknown Sephiroth. So Square are really doubling down on the mindfuckery when it comes to Seph, and frankly, I think there's even more than that, which I'll go into, because the level 4 consensus broadly categorizes the Sephiroth as a post-Advent Children Sephiroth, a future one. But once we start looking deeper, we add in all these Ultimania versions. We factor in that time is no longer linear in this game. No, so we might also have like the Sephiroth from this timeline, the OG one, the one still in the Northern Crater. And I know this might sound super overcomplicated and messy, but they've actually done a really good job in keeping it quite neat and thrilling, in my opinion. But that doesn't take away the fact though that figuring out which Seph is actually in each given scene is really freaking hard. Really hard. So I'll just give you some examples, we'll explore one and it'll put it all into scope. So let's take the Shinra building. The one we meet outside, the Genova tank, he appears and this happens.
I'm sick of this.
Yep, flashbacks, lots of flashbacks. So from the 4 Ultimania ones listed, we'd be tempted to think, so is this a flashback Seph, or maybe an illusion? The illusion one, but in Seph's impressive words section from the Ultimania, it actually states that the Sephiroth that appears before Jenova's encasement in the Shinra building is actually not an illusion, but a real person. When Sephiroth says reunion, just say what exactly does he mean? They actually throw that in. So yeah, Square, you can tell even from the way they word it, they're having real fun in playing with us. Real fun in messing with us. And I love this because it's creating that same uncertain tension that original Sephiroth constantly had about him. We were always on edge. We were always unsure what he was going to do, where he was coming from. Was it Cloud's mind? I mean, even Cloud in this game has to repeatedly ask, is it really you? And it's really serving well in bringing back this air of scary mystery about a villain that were this a like for like, we would just know exactly who he was and what he was planning. That's why I love it. Brilliant Square. Hope they can execute it. But anyway, I'm tempted to say that this Sephiroth was a blacked robe Sephiroth. That was primarily just channeling Jenova's consciousness. Hence, you know, the don't deny me, doesn't show any sort of recognition, and just saying about a desire for reunion, which is very much a core goal of Jenova. But what we'll see is even a blacked robe Sephiroth, one inhabiting a fell clone, isn't specifically going to be Sephiroth from the OG timeline or Jenova, because more than one Seph can use them. So going further, like the one Palmer saw, for example, and freaked the hell out over. That was definitely most likely a blacked robed Sephiroth, but the thing inhabiting its brain was also most likely to be what I call Fatebending Sephiroth. Or unknown Sephiroth. And I love this because it's a scene as insignificant as this as appearing to Palmer that has a chain of effects that until you actually look at, you have no clue just how intricate and deep it goes. Because by showing himself to Palmer sooner, Palmer goes and he squeaks at the meeting, which none of the other Shinra execs really take seriously, but Hojo does. Hojo is the only one to take it seriously and talks about doing a face-to-face meeting with Sephiroth. Now going to this line, I'll quickly play it.
Face to face. How I should like to meet their offspring. Their offspring. Their offspring.
This line went straight over my head because I thought he was talking about Aerith at first. I really thought he was talking about Lucretia and Garth, but the more I watch it back, the way he says to meet their offspring, what the hell does that mean? Because that sounds like that's Hojo implying that he isn't the dad. Are they going for a Vincent Lucretia fatherhood? A Vincent father situation? What the hell? Anyway, I'm not going to go down that tangent just yet. Another video, another time. Anyway, the reason it's important because while thinking about all this, Hojo, he lingers outside the office when he usually wouldn't, thinking about it. And that allows Cloud and the crew to get from the vents at the toilet sooner, which allows them to intercept Hojo, which means we then have the lab sequence way sooner. The building goes on high alert quicker, soldiers come. Ghosts even have to intercept Hojo, fake ghosts, to stop him from telling Cloud he wasn't in Soldier sooner than Cloud should know that detail. This then leads to Cloud breaking down quicker, and then they go to Aerith's room, which happens instead of jail, like OG. And I do miss jail. I love the sass interaction between Tifa and Aerith in that scene, but it didn't happen because Fatebending Seph showed himself to Palmer. That then leads the other cell of Avalanche HQ and Wedge to appear at the building. That all happens for another reason, which I might go into at the end of this video, because that is a whole other really deep, intricate butterfly effect all to itself. But because they're there, it means that the crew can now get extracted from the rooftop, where usually they would head down to the bottom of the buildings. But crew heads up top. President Shinra is still alive before original timeline Sephiroth has had the chance to arrive and kill him, aka Jenova Sephiroth. Which, when he appears, they actually had the grace to show to us, to clearly visually portray to us that it was Jenova. Its reaction to meeting them all of a sudden is stabbing Barrett, which again, the whispers have to undo, but not before another Seph just suddenly appears. Now this one I believe to be future or fate-bending Seph, unknown, and he carries off the body of Clone 49. Cloud pursues, and this is probably the clearest moment we get that there are multiple Seths. The insanity is shown to us. Because he carries the body up, they dive off the roof, and the clone that Sephiroth was in Future 1 aka number 2, gives Cloud a knowing glance on the way down. Your brain's starting to warm up yet? Jesus, mine is. Anyway, it's a lot, but it's huge in understanding the multiple Sephiroths and how them interacting and even contradicting themselves is starting to spiral events drastically in the original timeline, and that's causing the Whispers to start going more and more berserk. When they start becoming unable to put events back on track, that's why they're flying around in their masses, they swarm the Shinra building, because it's eventually getting to the point of no return. And when that happens, it awakens the Harbinger of Fate, which I theorize to be a planetary weapon, a weapon of the planet. Similar to Ruby, Diamond, Emerald, Sapphire, they're the weapons the planet summons. They're kind of like the soldiers, the boots on the ground, if you will. And we've got other ones like Omega, that's for being a vessel of the souls, which, that makes my God Cloud theory not quite so ridiculous. Cloud becoming the vessel of souls. Omega is one, and it's especially not as ridiculous if you think that Chaos, which is the counterpart to Omega, that's the weapon that is there to harvest the souls in a absolute must scenario. And of course, Chaos is in Vincent, a human whose body is so indestructible, which I also believe Cloud's body to be. So Vincent is more or less a weapon, and I'm tangenting like a mofo. The point being is that the Harbinger of Fate seems like a weapon to me, one that is designed to do a hard reset if Destiny gets altered too much, I think. We, of course, as the crew, Cloud and the crew, they get roped into destroying it, and this is the classic irony of FF7. We're fighting for the planet, but we're also the ones who end up killing the exact things the planet designed to protect itself. It's backwards, but it's cool. And then enter Final Sephiroth. Final fight one, super overpowered, he's got the black wing. The Ultimator has the grace to actually tell us it's the unknown one, and unknown is a version we've never seen in the Final Fantasy universe before. So we truly have no idea about this one, why he's here, what his real goal, motivation, or even state of consciousness is. And what I do find weird upon investigating this one in more detail, especially during this fight sequence, is the marked absence of dialogue throughout the entire fight. Like, Sephiroth barely speaks, bar the odd line like, "Oh, the memories." Notice he says that when he casts fire spells, "Oh, the memories." That is such a dark reference to Nibelheim burning. Besides that, no, not really anything. Not even when he calls Meteor down does he throw off some sassy old line. And my interpretation is that this is Harbinger Sephiroth, one that has absorbed, quite literally, a planetary weapon's power to control Destiny. Hence, why in this fight he can summon the Whispers to fight at his whim. And at the end of it, when he's defeated, he disappears in a pile of them. And just going into this fight, the whole cinematography of the way this fight was shot seems so symbolic. Now, the gang, they're smashing through Sephiroth's corrupted version of Destiny. Their power levels are through the roof, Midgar's swirling all around. The same corrupted version of Destiny that I'll just quickly add was represented with the color purple the whole game, and really awesome, really beautifully done. When he becomes the Harbinger, in the Harbinger itself, it's kind of like the corruption is like caged in its body because of the infiltration of the remnants as well as the most powerful Whispers. So these had like this purplish hue, like the core ones that overlooked the significant events where stuff was changed. Even Genova's blood had this kind of purplish, janky hue to it. It's all symbolic, I think, of the way that Genova operates and has ever since Cetra days, is that she infiltrates the system, corrupts it from within, and then consumes it. And that is the literal definition of a parasite. The same parasite that, and this is a good point to bring it up, infected Sephiroth. Now, follow me where I go here, because I'm not going to be trying to start a hashtag Sephiroth did nothing wrong trend here. Now, like I said, he had deep-rooted psychological issues before, but there is a real argument to be had that there wasn't a complete megalomaniac capable of the deranged mass murder that he commits after he encounters Genova. Genova took Sephiroth's life trauma, his isolation, and used it to turn him into a monster. And it's not the first time she's done this. In fact, one of the very first story descriptions of Genova we see when it arrived by Meteor is, once the alien emerged from the impact site and approached the Cetra settlements, it gleaned their memories and emotions and adopted the forms of their dead relatives to get close to them. The alien then released a virus upon the Cetra, in actuality its own cellular material, a substance that drove the Cetra mad and transformed them into monsters. So if a whole race were able to be mentally tormented and twisted into monsters, what chance did Sephiroth have? A guy who had been injected with her cells since childhood. A guy who was then slowly twisted in the dark silence of the Nibelheim Mansion library. For days and days on end, it was in that state, that Genova-induced mania, he did what he did, and most importantly, that was the first time he died. That was the state of mind he died in. And after Cloud defeated him, the only way Sephiroth could remain to endure, to live on, which I believe to be one of the few but authentic Sephiroth desires to him, not to Genova, but well, actually to Genova as well. I think that's kind of what unifies them. I've always seen Genova and Sephiroth as a mutual goal to one another that eventually starts turning into a battle of wills as the game goes on. But anyway, after Cloud defeats him, Sephiroth, to survive, he actually had to cut away parts of himself. Very similar to, you know, when Sauron, for example, he pours his malice, his hatred, his desire to rule all of things into the ring. It's exactly the same here. So it's like a double whammy. He got infected and then the infection got emotionally consolidated because he had to cut away things like compassion and empathy to survive. In fact, the Lifestream Black chapters of On the Way to a Smile, which will be hugely important later down the line of this video, details that the way Sephiroth actually incarnates himself on the planet is by using the memories of how others remember him, other souls in the Lifestream. So much for never being just a memory, Seph. In a lot of cases, that's precisely what he is. How he was perceived, not the real authentic him. From that day on, the multiple reincarnations and time Sephiroth has come back, he's never been complete since. And I think it's kind of ironic really, because we even see Cloud face this same difficulty. So remember in my God Cloud theory that I believe the story's finale would hinge on Cloud finding an ultimate balance of judgment and mercy. Remember I said that, but I only realized after how prevalent that theme was even appearing in this first part. Because we see multiple scenes of Cloud totally lost in his mania and actually in the symbolic executioner's position. We see it with Johnny. Johnny's down on his knees, Cloud willing to kill that fool. We then see it with Marco and again with Reno. And it actually takes Aerith or Tifa stopping him. Which is, of course, all very reminiscent of the moment in OG when Cloud almost did it to Aerith as well and had to be stopped. But we really see that mercy judgment thing come through, and we even see it when Cloud beats Sephiroth in the fight. So the same arms overhead pose, executioner style, which we kind of catch Sephiroth. They zoom to his face, he sort of grins at it. But weirder still, Sephiroth, he just lets Cloud hit him. This is curious. Now it could have just been for a cinematic intent, but Harbinger Seph here, he had plenty of time to see that attack come in and to counter it. Like loads. An actual runway's worth of time to clock it, but he doesn't. He just leaves his sword down, doesn't even attempt to counter it. It's as if he wanted Cloud to strike him, as if he wanted this Big Bang event to occur and the physical laws of nature to be destroyed, which I do believe is happening all throughout the game. You know, they're not just altering the course of Destiny, but other physical laws, you know, the timelines. When I talked about timeline memory bleed and overlapping memories as well, even like when Aerith uses magic from her hand, you know, on the portal that was opened. Some people have been asking what the hell this was. I think it was, you know, because her hand is the same hand that bestowed future memories to players throughout the game. I believe that that spell made it so that when the team walked through, they were given the future memories of their fighting prowess, like their physical combat memory, their ingrained fighting programming from the future. That's what I think, because that kind of explains why, and it was a point so many people complained about, but this does it neatly, like why they were able to fight with such insane power levels all of a sudden. Like they were so much more powerful, doing crazy shit they couldn't do the whole game, even like the way the crew are just working so flawlessly together. And this happens again, you know, when Cloud is just, you know, he's Flea Boy teleporting around Sephiroth all of a sudden at the edge of creation. It's bloody wild, and yeah, I think it was Aerith that allowed that to happen. But anyway, this is where the real part of the theory comes into play now. This Sephiroth here one at the edge of creation, is by far the most interesting of them all to observe. And without even going deep in the rabbit hole, without even dissecting it right now, I think we can all unanimously agree that there was something profoundly different about this Sephiroth. Now, as much as we can dive into the lore and I can ramble about obscure FF7 universe and Ultimania plucked details, I think this game runs on such an emotive level. They've put so much effort into it that how we feel, how things like music and eyes and mouth and tonality plays has a significant role. The Square Enix are trying to reveal to us hints of what's happening, give us the feeling, and it's the way that this Sephiroth spoke. It was the way that he carried himself.
Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist.
Certainly the way he looked, touched and even interacted with Cloud, there was a severe, definitely, but almost sincere level of respect going on here. There was a balance, a poise. Like the way he offers his hand with almost no trace of the malice or the spite we're used to with Sephiroth. It's as if he, and I'm going to say it, he's being restored completely. Because, the aspects of Sephiroth that I spoke about being lost earlier had to be cut away. They seem like they're back in him, and that's why he sounds the way he is. Almost authentic in what he's trying to achieve, and that there might be some form of humanity residing back within this Sephiroth. And that's exactly what I believe has happened. That's what I believe happened at this explosion event here. In knowing that his fate was tied to the planet, theory time, Sephiroth knew he was an enemy of the planet. And in being such, in being tied to Denova and an enemy of Gaia, that destiny was always pitched against him. Because surely the Whispers must have been working against Sephiroth. Think about it. If they were there to see Zack die and all these other events before this, I would not be surprised by this game's logic that this is why Sephiroth repeatedly lost to Cloud. Even at times when losing to Cloud made no sense. Like Cloud was not Mako enhanced. When he was clean impaled and somehow picked Sephiroth up. By Sephiroth's literal own words, it was impossible for Cloud to have done what he did that day in Nibelheim. That was always a really big unanswered question. And what if Square are playing the idea that each time Sephiroth lost, he lost because the ghosts were there to help in him losing. And now in absorbing and destroying fate, being able to rewrite his own destiny. That this really is Seph restoring himself. And if it is, what would this mean? What would a restored Sephiroth's goal be? So there could be so many possibilities, and believe me, I'd love to hear your guys' ideas about what Sephiroth is after in this game. But I'm going to take you down a possibility, so I want to play you this scene from Dirge of Cerberus first, and then we'll discuss.
Anything that has definite shape will one day cease to exist. The same is true for this world. Before she takes her final breath, the pure life streams that flow freely beneath her crust will be brought together into one. By Omega, the ultimate life form. His purpose? To gather all life, sentient and non, and lead it into the sea of stars, where it will embark on a fabulous journey along a road untraveled.
As I said earlier in this vid, I believe Sephiroth's will to endure is a genuine one to him. And if this is indeed post-Advent Children woke Seph, one so clued on to the events of the world that he's able to manipulate them as meticulously as he's doing in this first game, then I can't help but think he must know about the greater Lifestream, that accessing what is known as the greater Lifestream or the Cosmos stream has to be his new goal. Because in OG days, he just wanted the Lifestream. He saw that as the pinnacle of power at that point, and it was entirely his goal to become the vessel of the souls of Gaia. But it's by Advent Children we saw the words traveling through the cosmos.
What I want, Cloud,
is to sail the darkness of the cosmos with this planet as my vessel.
I think that must be his goal, and to get that goal, ultimately doing what he did in the original would not help him with that goal, because as long as Jenova remains, the Lifestream is corrupted. He is corrupted. No, they literally call it, and I didn't even know this until scripting this video, they call it negative Lifestream. We see it most clear in AC, it's what's coming from the sky, negative Lifestream, and it is because of this corruption, this infection, that the larger stream of the cosmos has cut off Gaia. I mean, it makes sense, lest it risk infecting the wider universe, and this is what I'd love to see. I'd love to see not just a good or bad, I'd like to see a nuanced, or I like the way that someone else worded it, an enlightened Sephiroth who seems villainous but is actually trying, perhaps genuinely, to save a corrupted, dying planet that will one day return to the larger cosmos. If Cloud lends him his strength, that they can defy humanity's limited destiny to die on a cold rock and continue on to a greater evolution. Whoa! Whoa, that would be a heavy, hefty, hyperlicious motive for this Sephiroth, and is it good or bad? Well, maybe we could see the lines of that blur quite heavily. I'd like that, to see Sephiroth forcefully or viciously at times drag this story to the outcome he is trying to achieve, but maybe there is a modicum of good in what Sephiroth is trying to achieve, to essentially reconnect humanity to the greater universe, and maybe throughout this we can get glimpses of the Crisis Core character we knew, the man beneath it, and maybe certain characters could even bring that out. And there's 4 I could definitely identify who would make the most impact on bringing out maybe a real Seph. One of them is back in the timeline already, Zack, and I know loads are wondering on Genesis, with the G cells, or what that stands for, Gillian cells reference. I doubt it, but maybe. But I could definitely see Lucretia. I keep saying this. Lucretia is a major wild card for this remake, his real mother. Who knows what's going to happen to her in this timeline twisty tale. She is a real potential ace in the hole to this whole story, and I also can't help think that for Vincent, who, again, he's also still chaos. He's a planetary weapon of destruction, and in being so, maybe he's also kind of outside of time and space, the laws of it. Maybe he will have a significant role in how this timeline stuff plays out. I mean, he sleeps in a box for 30 years without aging. He's definitely outside of the laws of time, which could tie so coolly into the story. And yeah, maybe he is, dare I freaking say it, full fanfiction mode, Sephiroth's real dad. Maybe, unless I totally misinterpreted that Hojo line. One thing I definitely think that is going to happen is that this new unknown Sephiroth is going to walk a very different moral line, with a very different and greater goal, because there's just no way Square are going to all of these huge lengths to set up this elaborate balance of multiple Sephiroths just to play it the same. No chance. They're going somewhere with this, and maybe that includes Sephiroth even having to stop himself. I've seen that theory out there from people. Maybe he plays a different role in Aerith's death, or yeah, maybe he'll be the one to end Jenova's infection to get to the greater Lifestream, which is kind of a good and bad, which again, it'd be that tragic poetry of Sephiroth.
You don't have to hang on any longer.
Mother, is that...
Everyone's waiting, if you're ready.
He was the one to be born with their cells. The first one, he was the guinea pig that made all soldier. And that was all through no choice of its own, and it would really stand for something if it was then also him who ended it. And I think it is all possible, this Sephiroth versus Jenova concept, because of the Or and Watashi pronouns. So yeah, some of you already know about this, but he addressed himself as Or other words, me, an actual self-identified pronoun that he had not used since before he met Jenova. Oh, I mean, that is a huge giveaway that this Seph could be one that is free from the influence of Jenova, and by that logic could be going down a whole different mission than we're expecting. And I know what some people are going to say, nah, Pez, there's no way Seph can be good, because Aerith literally calls him wrong.
And you're wrong.
Those who look with clouded eyes see nothing but shadows.
Everything about you is wrong.
Well, actually that wasn't the new Sephiroth, that wasn't the unknown new one we're dealing with, because the Ultimania again says that at chapter 18, at the end of the Midgar Highway, before we go through the Wall of Fate, the one that we're meeting there is in fact Illusion Sephiroth. And Illusion Sephiroth, that's the out and out evil one. That's the I'll never be a memory complex one. The only one that Aerith has really known. I don't think she knows who this unknown one is. And I say this because we go all the way back to 2005, On the Way to a Smile, which happened to be the same year. Story, scenario, and mad fanfiction-esque writer Najima, he was coming up with story scenarios were a remake to happen. So this is big in understanding what Najima's mindset was at the time and could now be influencing this new remake. In that story, just as we see in Maiden Who Travels Through the Planet, Aerith meets Sephiroth in the Lifestream. I'm just going to read some bits from Lifestream, the Lifestream White. So White 2 says, Aerith comes to understand that Sephiroth is using Cloud as his tether to keep on returning. And then Livestream White 3 goes even further. She's figured out Sephiroth's method of persisting indefinitely through other people, not even just Cloud, but it states she also figures out Sephiroth's overarching plan. And that to stop it, she needed to return to warn Cloud and the others, but she wanted to return to Cloud in the way he knew her. Oh god, oh god, and then cue the remake. Here suddenly we have an Aerith returning Cloud, playing along with the way he remembered her. Now I'm completely convinced that Aerith knows the whole way through the game what's happening. There was even this Reddit post, I'll quickly show you parts, of 50 different examples that the user ranked from weak to strong, where Aerith more or less gave away how much she actually knew. And I believe it's from that state of mind, that interpretation of Sephiroth, that Aerith is coming back with, aka that's Illusion Sephiroth, not unknown Edge of Creation Sephiroth. And again, I think it would be poetic to see this kind of balance walk, because even like Aerith's death when it first happened, Katase said when they were talking about the feeling and the emotion of Aerith dying, what they were going for was that death comes suddenly, and that there is no notion of either good or bad. No notion of either good or bad. I really want that for this remake. But he also said, if I had known this was coming, I would have done things differently. Oh man, oh man. It's almost as if Kitase was prophesizing the change of events we're now seeing in this remake. I'm finishing this video off because god dang this is long. Finishing from how this ties into like my God Cloud theory, I could maybe see a part of Sephiroth and Cloud the way that Noctis and Ardyn in their story at some point had to work together to see their goals mutually realized, but no, before eventually having to part ways, they never had the same view, the same outlook. This theme even with like Cloud and Shinra. Shinra side and help Cloud and the crew because they know if there's no planet, there's no kingdom to rule. They'll be ruling over ash and destruction. And I can maybe see Cloud and Sephiroth going down this route and then parting ways at the part I said in the God Cloud theory where Jenova is finally purged. Her parasitic legacy is actually cleansed from the planet, and then the option of going Sephiroth's route, taking humanity off of Gaia, traveling through the cosmos, somewhat unnaturally becoming beings that defy the fate of their planet and endure on, versus Cloud's perhaps acceptance of destiny and impermanence. The planet will one day end, that every chapter has an opening and a closing, and in a way that's what makes it beautiful. And remember the promise I told you guys about in the last video, the promise between Cloud and Aerith, the one I totally made up when she died that could go on to be the promised land. It could be a promise after he glimpses Neo Midgar in Aerith's plan, like I said, but maybe not. Maybe it's a promise to let her go when she dies. Remember, Aerith in the game says, don't fall in love with me. Maybe she asks him not to mourn like he did in Advent Children, and that's what he promises. Either way, I think the promise is going to be so important and should happen, because there is something so beautiful in that if they do it, because it was the promise between Tifa and Cloud when they were kids. That sets up the game. That's the start of our game, the foundation stone. There would be a parallel beauty if it was the Tifa Cloud promise that starts it and it was an Aerith Cloud promise that finishes the game.
At last, the promise has been made.
And I could definitely see this happening in some way, because I only clocked this recently. Notice when we're in Aerith's bedroom and Barrett is reciting the story of the promised land.
Unto her promised land shall we one day return. By her loving grace and providence, may we take our place in paradise.
And Aerith's like, oh, you knew it. At the same really significant point, we see Aerith about to tell them something and that they intervene and the reunion petals fall. Such a huge scene. Listen to the theme that is playing.
And they must think you can lead them to it. Can you?
Nope. Someday, maybe, I'll find it in me. But now, not even if I wanted to.
Even if you could, that land belongs to the... to you and your people. Shinra's after it because they believe it's rich in Mako. Mako they've got no right to claim. But they'll try to take it anyway, won't they? Greedy bastards will never stop.
The theme that is playing is a combination, a mix of Aerith and Cloud's theme. Oh boy, OG. Oh, I love it. Square, you have set this game up for potentially so many beautiful avenues to be explored. The ones that are just going to hit so deep. God dang, I'm just noticing the length of this video. So there we go, guys. A big fat lore drop on why there could be a potentially nuanced Sephiroth. Out of all the Sephiroths appear in this game, Edge of Creation might be a new one that, while we assume is villainous, could very easily be reaching for a goal way beyond our expectations. And I may have to break this video into a two-parter so I could dive into the really cool butterfly effect I spoke about earlier, the one that kept Wedge alive and the intricacies surrounding that. Totally crazy the attention to detail that Square really placed into this, but we don't have time for that this vid, so instead I'll just leave you off with two totally crackpot theories I've seen on the internet. I don't even believe them myself, but they crackpot, they crazy. One, Marl is Marlene from the future. Now obviously their names are similar, Marl, Lean. I don't know how this series worked with the time stuff. I don't even know why. But people have pointed out the similarities in their name. Marl is a new character. Why is she helping this crew out as much as she is? Like, she literally says Tifa's the granddaughter she never has. She has huge affection for him. Just lets them all live in the apartment rent-free. We get quite a significant shot of her at the end of the game, putting up the 7th Heaven bar and grinning at it almost. Like she has some sort of emotional connection to it. Cue.
Been back to the bar yet? Maybe you should go take a look. Watch your step or you'll wind up in a hole.
I don't know, it's nuts. And crackpot number 2. So this kind of bounces off when Maximilian said that he could see Jessie actually not being dead, as sometimes Square Enix's weird wording in descriptions made it seem, but she is in fact alive. But that when we go to the Golden Saucer, she will be the princess of the play happening, and that her dad will be alive in the audience, and neither of them will know anything about Avalanche. She won't recognize us. You know, maybe it's not even the Golden Saucer play. Maybe she does become the actress in Loveless, and we get to see Loveless play in some way. Maybe with Jessie as the goddess. Oh, that would be that'd be nuts. But I've also seen somebody say something similar with Biggs, that he will be the dean of this story. Or that he won't remember Avalanche and the crew, but because Jessie's glove and what some people say are Wedge's headband are on his desk, maybe they're both dead and Biggs will blame Avalanche and he will come after them for revenge instead of Dean. And in fact, I remember when I played this part, I kept seeing some people say in the chat, Biggs has lost an arm. Now, I don't know where they're getting that. I've looked. I mean, let's look really carefully. Is his arm missing? I don't know. They don't really show it. It would only sort of be below the forearm anyway if they were doing the same as Dean's situation. I don't know. It's freaking nuts. I don't even know if I like it because I think Marlene, Dean's father, is an important thing. The backstory of Barrett is one of my favourite, most emotional scenes from OG. I love it. It's heartbreaking. You know, when Dean just knows he's too far gone and ends himself. But blow me bloody down. We've gone too deep in the hole. I'm resurfacing so I can end this freaking video. I love this game. I love this new direction. If you have stayed all the way to the end of this video, you must be in some way loving it too. If not, you're definitely a freaking lore junkie. I've got to see those comments. I'd appreciate the likes. And I bleeding well demand the subscribe. Thank you so much, guys. What do you think? Nuanced, potentially good Sephiroth. Could it happen? Take it easy. Until the next video. Kupo.